The secret to making your engine last 300,000 miles is not magic. It is a handful of simple habits that almost nobody takes seriously. When you see a car roll into the shop with 300,000 on the dash and it still sounds tight, that did not happen by accident. Someone treated that engine like an investment instead of a disposable toy, and today we are going to unpack the real secret behind that kind of long-term vehicle reliability. You can let this episode run while you drive, work, wrench in the garage, or wind down at home. Think of it as a riding partner in your day, feeding you high-value automotive insight while you handle life so you pick up better habits without trying too hard. Back when I was doing mobile mechanic work out of an old pickup, I had two customers on the same block. Same year sedan, same engine. One car had around 80,000 miles and already sounded tired. The other had over 230,000 and purred. I asked both owners how often they changed their oil. The first one shrugged and said whenever the light comes on. The second owner walked inside and came back with a notebook full of dates, mileage, oil types, and filters. That notebook was the real secret to engine performance evaluation and long-term performance. If you want 300,000 miles, your number one job is clean oil and the right oil. Modern full synthetic and high mileage formulas do an incredible job of controlling deposits, reducing friction, and protecting seals when you change them on time. For most drivers, a 5,000 to 7,000 mile interval with a quality filter is a strong maintenance strategy. If you tow, sit in traffic, or live on short trips, you tighten that interval. You treat the engine like an athlete. Fresh fluid, clean filter, consistent schedule. At the dealership, I met a customer with a crossover just under 100,000 miles. Paint was perfect, and the interior was spotless. She came in for a ticking sound on cold start. When we pulled the maintenance history, it was ugly. Huge gaps between changes and always the cheapest bulk oil. That ticking was varnish, wear, and neglect saying hello every morning. Mechanical reliability is not luck. It is the result of data-driven recommendations followed over years or ignored until the noise finally gets your attention. On the other side, there was a rideshare driver I serviced in his apartment parking lot. He was already at 270,000 miles on a four-cylinder and still making money with that car every night. His approach was not complicated. He stayed on top of oil, coolant, air filters, and spark plugs. He used advanced automotive diagnostics early whenever he felt a stumble, a misfire, or a strange vibration, instead of waiting for the check engine light to flash for months. When I put a gauge on that engine, compression was strong and idle was smooth. He was calmly steering his way toward 300,000. Your gauges are not decorations. They are your powertrain analysis system. Oil pressure and coolant temperature are two of the most important pieces of information in front of you, and most people barely glance at them. I had a customer who ignored a creeping temp gauge in summer traffic because there was no red warning light. One boiling overflow and a cloud of steam later, we were talking about warped heads, blown gaskets, and a repair bill that could have paid for years of proper cooling system service. Warm-up habits also decide whether your engine reaches 300,000 miles. People love to fire up a cold engine and rev it while they back out of the driveway. Cold oil is thick. Clearances are tight, and that is when most wear happens. The sweet spot is simple. Start the engine, let it idle for about half a minute, then drive gently until the temp gauge reaches normal. Every mile you drive is either feeding the health of your engine or chipping away at it. Aggressive launches, constant high-speed runs on a cold engine, and skipped services all stack up in the background. Smooth throttle, sensible highway speeds, timely oil changes, and paying attention when something feels off are the boring choices that quietly turn an ordinary commuter car into a 300,000-mile success story. If oil is the blood of a long-lasting engine, coolant is the life support system that keeps everything alive on hot days and long climbs. I have seen engines die from overheating. People think as long as there is fluid in the reservoir, they are safe, but coolant breaks down and loses protection over time. If you want a 300,000-mile engine, you treat the cooling system as a critical part of your maintenance strategy, not an afterthought. There was a family who loved road trips in their minivan. They brought it to me before a summer vacation because the air felt warm at idle. When I checked the coolant, it looked like brown soup. The radiator was partially clogged and the water pump was starting to seep. They had been topping off for years instead of flushing and replacing components on schedule. We caught it just in time. New radiator, pump, thermostat, and proper coolant, and that van survived many more miles in mountain heat. On the flip side, a construction worker once called me to a parking lot because his truck had suddenly lost power and died. He had overheated on a climb, kept driving with the gauge pinned, and warped the head so badly the engine barely cranked. The repair estimate was more than the truck was worth. One cooling system service every few years would have been cheap ownership cost analysis. Ignoring that system turned a tough truck into scrap. Transmission service belongs in this conversation too, because an engine that reaches 300,000 miles without a working transmission is still a failed plan. Automatic transmissions hate heat, dirty fluid, and a lifetime of towing without maintenance. Many people believe lifetime fluid is real. What it often means is that the transmission might last the length of the warranty, not that it will stay healthy forever. A customer who ran a landscaping company had a compact pickup that spent its life hauling trailers and tools. Every 30 to 40,000 miles, he did a transmission fluid exchange, inspected the cooler lines, and kept the fluid level perfect. The engine and transmission both crossed 280,000 miles before he finally upgraded. That truck was not lucky. It was living proof that long-term performance comes from planned maintenance, not hope. Air and fuel are the other half of the equation. A clogged air filter chokes an engine, makes it run rich, and slowly builds carbon on valves and pistons. Cheap fuel from questionable stations can leave deposits that rob power and efficiency over time. Filters, quality fuel, and periodic fuel system cleaning are simple ways to preserve mechanical reliability. I remember a customer who complained that his engine felt lazy and rough at idle. Spark plugs were original at 120,000 miles. The air filter was black with dust, and the throttle body was lined with grime. We did plugs, coils where needed, filter, cleaned the throttle, and ran a fuel system cleaner through the tank. The difference was night and day. That car went from feeling like it was on its last leg to feeling alive again, and he stuck to regular tune-ups after that. Timing belts and timing chains are silent decision-makers in whether an engine survives. Some engines bend valves if the belt breaks, some survive, but none enjoy snapping a belt at highway speed. Technical automotive knowledge matters here. You need to know whether your engine is interference or non-interference, and what interval the manufacturer recommends. One customer brought in a wagon with a timing belt that was well past due. He joked that he was riding on borrowed time. When we pulled the old belt, cracks were visible between the teeth, and the tensioner was nearly out of travel. If that belt had let go on the freeway, the repair would have required a full top-end rebuild. Instead, he spent a fraction of that cost and walked out with peace of mind, ready to chase his own 300,000-mile goal. Every system you service on time is like adding another chapter to the story of your car. Cooling system, transmission, ignition, air, and fuel delivery work together. Maintenance is not about perfection. It is about patterns and priorities. You do not need tools to reach 300,000 miles, but you do need a plan, and you need to stick to it even when the car seems fine. There is another angle to making an engine last 300,000 miles that most people overlook. It starts before you even own the car. The day you choose the wrong vehicle with the wrong history, you quietly cap its future. You cannot drive neglect out of an engine. You can only avoid buying it in the first place. At the dealership, I watched people fall in love with paint and payment instead of powertrain health. One customer was excited about a sporty sedan with shiny wheels and fresh detail work. On paper, it looked fine. When I pulled the service history and did a quick powertrain analysis, the story changed. Long gaps between oil changes, notes about overheating, and a pattern of missed services. I suggested we look at another sedan on the lot with higher miles but a clean maintenance file. He chose the boring one, and later told me it became the most reliable car he had ever owned. Then there was a customer at an auction who asked me to look over a truck he wanted to bid on. It started right up, no lights on the dash, and the body was straight. A quick advanced automotive diagnostics scan showed a list of pending codes that had been cleared just before the sale. Fuel trims were off, misfire counters were climbing, and the oil was dark and thin. That truck was dressed up but hiding serious engine trouble. He walked away, and someone else bought a problem. Sometimes the secret to reaching 300,000 miles is the car you do not buy. Buying used does not mean giving up on big mileage. It just means you need a sharper eye and better habits. Whenever I help someone shop, the first rule is simple. Do not buy a story, buy a history. Records, receipts, and consistent service tell you whether someone respected the engine. A car with higher miles and great maintenance often outlives a lower-mile car that was ignored. Even without deep technical automotive knowledge, you can ask for records, inspect fluid condition, and listen for strange noises on a test drive. Driving style is another quiet decision maker. Two drivers can own the same engine and see completely different lifespans. One accelerates smoothly, keeps revs reasonable, and coasts when it makes sense. The other treats every on-ramp like a drag strip. Over time, that abuse shows up as worn bearings, tired piston rings, and failing mounts. I had a customer who delivered packages for a living. He treated every stop like a full-throttle sprint. By 150,000 miles, his engine was burning oil, and his transmission was begging for mercy. Another customer with the same model drove gently, followed the maintenance plan, and passed 250,000 with original internals. Vehicle safety considerations also play into engine life. Bad motor mounts, failed suspension parts, and worn brakes make the car harder to control and harder on the drivetrain. I saw a customer with a slipping serpentine belt that squealed on every start. Instead of fixing it, he revved the engine to make the noise stop. Eventually, the belt failed, the alternator stopped charging, and the engine overheated when the water pump lost drive. A small repair ignored nearly ended the engine for good. Even simple things like keeping the engine bay reasonably clean can help. I am not talking about show-level detail. I mean removing leaves from the cowl, clearing debris from around the radiator, and fixing oil leaks before they coat everything. Heat is the enemy of long-term performance, and a clogged, dirty engine bay holds heat in all the wrong places. A quick rinse, a little time with a brush, and a look at common leak points do more for your engine than most people realize. When you step back, the secret to reaching 300,000 miles is a mix of smart buying, careful driving, and consistent care. You stack small decisions in your favor, you use technical automotive knowledge when you have it, and you ask for help when you do not. You stop assuming that engines just die whenever they feel like it, and start seeing how much control you really have over their story. You stop treating maintenance as a chore, and start seeing it as a way to buy freedom. 300,000 miles is not a miracle, the result of intention, patience, and respect for machine over time. By now, you can see that making an engine last 300,000 miles is not about one magic product or secret additive. It is about how you live with the car day after day. There are a few more tools and habits that quietly push the odds in your favor and turn your engine into something you can trust far beyond the average. One of the most powerful tools a modern owner can use is a simple scan device. You do not need to be a professional technician to benefit from advanced automotive diagnostics. A small reader lets you see what the computer is complaining about before a small problem snowballs. I have lost count of how many customers ignored a check engine light because the car still seemed to run fine. only to discover later that what started as a minor issue had quietly damaged long-term performance. I remember a young driver who called me because her compact car had started idling rough and using more fuel. The light on her dash had been glowing for weeks. A quick scan showed an oxygen sensor code and fuel trim values that were far out of range. That sensor had been failing slowly, and the computer had been dumping extra fuel to compensate. Over time, that fuel washed past the rings, thinned the oil, and built carbon on the valves. With an earlier scan and repair, we could have protected mechanical reliability. Instead, we had to clean the intake, change the oil, and hope the rings recovered. On the other hand, I worked with a rideshare driver who bought his own scan tool and used it as part of his routine. Every few weeks, he would plug in, check for pending codes, and review basic data like coolant temperature and fuel trims. He did not become a full-time technician, but he learned what normal looked like for his car. When something drifted, he called me before the light ever turned on. That simple habit probably bought him tens of thousands of extra miles and kept his engine making money instead of sitting in a shop bay. Regular inspections fit into the same pattern. Whether you use a trusted shop, a mobile mechanic, or your own eyes, a quick inspection, every oil change pays for itself. Look for leaks, worn belts, cracked hoses, and loose mounts. Check fluid levels and color. Pay attention to any new vibration, smell, or noise. This kind of routine acts like preventative medicine for your powertrain and reinforces long-term vehicle reliability. I had a customer who worked in finance and loved spreadsheets. When he bought a used sedan, he built a log with dates, mileage, services, and costs. At first, it looked like a list of expenses. Over time, it turned into proof that his ownership cost analysis was paying off. Modern automotive trends actually work in your favor if you play them correctly. New vehicles are more expensive than ever, and more people are keeping cars longer. That makes it more important to understand mechanical reliability and maintenance strategy. Engines today are designed with tight tolerances and smart control systems. Treat them well, and they reward you with long-term performance. Ignore them, and the same technology that makes them strong can also make repairs more costly when you wait too long. I remember an older customer who grew up when people expected engines to fail around 100,000 miles. He was amazed when his modern truck crossed that mark and still felt strong. We talked about better materials and improved lubrication, but we also talked about how the human part of the equation had not changed. You still have to change fluid, listen to noises, and look under the hood once in a while if you want to see 300,000 on the odometer instead of a tow truck in the driveway. In the end, the secret to making your engine last 300,000 miles is a mindset, not a miracle. You respect warm-up, choose quality fluids, stay ahead of heat, and watch your gauges. You use simple tools to catch problems early and let technical automotive knowledge guide your decisions. You understand that every small choice, from where you buy fuel to how often you change oil, becomes part of a long story written in metal and miles. Treat that story with care, and your engine will pay you back every time you turn the key. Subscribe to the channel for podcasts, and see you in the next one.